Hello, I'm sorry about that. Unfortunately, everyone's adjusting to making their videos and getting their classes organized. And since I've chosen to do it by video, because I thought this would simplify, actually, it's causing a lot of issues that I had no idea about. So, anyways, apologies because my memory of my camera was full, so I got shut out. It forced the video to stop. So unfortunately, yes, you do now have 3 videos to watch. But anyways, so moving on. I'm going to continue now with, I just finished with slide 34, so I'm moving on now to slide 35. Slide 35 is talking about let's go back to slide 34. So slide 34, the most important point for this is for your closed questions that you begin with the verb. So because we start with the verb right away, any person listening to you should immediately be able to zone in on the tense that you're focused on. So if you hear do you, then you know you're going to respond with I do or I don't. And the meaning is, usually, normally, if someone says are you, then you know you mean now. If, however, someone starts with did you, then you know you should be answering with I did or I didn't. And the meaning is something that happened before and is finished. It is not happening now. If you hear will you, then of course your answer will be I will or I will not, or short form, I won't. So I won't, and the meaning is that the person's talking about the future or your future plans. Closed questions continuing. So now when we get into the present continuous, the are you momoing, this reflects right now or these days currently. So are you sitting right now? I imagine you are. Are you breathing? So when we answer, this still goes back to the same as the present tense, is that because it starts with are, you say I am or I am not. Is your simple answer, or I think that'll do for now because I don't want to give too much information and confuse you. So moving on to the have you PP. So have you PP, the interesting part about the have you PP is it means at any time in your life before now. It also adds this extra idea of maybe you will do that again in the future. So essentially what we're trying to establish is if you've done it at any time in your life, from when you were first born up until right now. So for example, I've given you some examples here. And the important point about this is once someone answers yes or no, then, usually, you're going to go with yes. So for the second question, your follow-up question is going to drop to the past tense because then you know they have done that. So for example, I started with have you eaten, and let's try have you eaten kangaroo? Okay, so if the person answers yes, I have, okay, so of course, if we hear have, we answer I have or I have not. Have you eaten kangaroo? And you say, I have eaten kangaroo. Then you say, oh, when did you eat it? Where did you try it? Okay, and then we move into the past tense for our follow-up questions. For another example, have you seen Grand Budapest Hotel? And if the person answers, yes, I have, then you ask questions about, oh, where did you see it? Who did you see it with? When did you watch the movie? If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a really funny movie, really, really good movie. Another one is, have you heard about? So have you heard about Donald Trump getting COVID? It was rather interesting. And then you can ask the person if they said, no, I haven't. Then you can say, oh, I heard about it. You can talk about your own experience. I heard about it, past tense. I heard about it maybe a week ago, and I thought it was really funny, past tense. Have you tried michin dokkoki? Yes, I have. Oh, what did you try? Which did you try? So we drop into the past tense. Have you been to London? Have you been to London? Yes, I have. When did you go? Where did you go? Blah, blah, blah. So these are your basic questions for when you want to establish facts about the person you're interviewing. But in interviews, generally speaking, you probably want to be asking open questions because we're not asking for factual information, we're looking for opinions and thoughts. So the reason why we choose open questions is that open questions, generally, any answer is okay. Any answer also is possible. So it just gives the person who you're asking the questions of, it gives them more of a chance to be more relaxed and that they can answer, they can think about what their opinion is and then give the answer accordingly. Then once they've given you those answers, you should be asking follow-up questions based on those answers. So it doesn't mean stop. I noticed the reason why I'm trying to teach this is that one of the common complaints people have when they're interviewing Korean students or when they're talking with Korean students is that they ask a question, the student answers one-word answer. The conversation stops. So what we want to do is we want to continue the conversation. This is also a really good way to get information. I also would like to encourage you to ask questions because, you know, this is part of your job as a future teacher. Okay, so moving on to open questions then. So this is when we're interviewing people, not establishing facts, whether they have or have not done something. Open questions are when we start with one of the 5 W's. And then we can add either the question words like do you or are you, and then we add the end point to the question. So I've given you examples here for do you. So what do you like to drink? And remember that drink in English tends to imply alcohol. What do you like to drink? I like to drink soju, I like to drink somek, I like to drink beer. Where do you dye your hair? Now in this case, because it's dye your hair, you would want to ask, first of all, do you dye your hair? Okay, because you need to establish factual. Do you dye your hair? Yes, you do. Where do you dye your hair? And then we'd ask that as a follow-up question. In the second case with the past tense, we follow the same pattern. So we start with the W and then we move to the question, the root question, and then we add the focal point of the question. So where did you drink last Saturday? So maybe if I say, what do you like to drink? The person says, oh, I like to drink beer. I like to drink cocktails. And I say, oh, you know, did you go out? When did you last go drinking? And they say, I went out last Saturday. And I ask, where did you drink last Saturday? Okay, so this would be a good follow-up question. Another way we can ask the follow-up questions for past tense verbs, though, is we can skip the did you and just use the past tense form of the verb, the focal point. So we can do who dyed your hair. If we have established the person does dye their hair, and we asked, oh, where do you dye your hair? And they say, oh, I went to the hair shop, whatever the hair shop name is, J Salon. And then we ask, who dyed your hair? And they say, oh, a hairdresser at the shop, or maybe your mom dyed your hair, or maybe your friend dyed your hair. Maybe you dyed your own hair. Other questions or examples that I used for this are, who taught you to drive? So this would be teach in the past tense. So moving on now to slide 38. We're going to continue with the open questions looking at the future. So where will you, and then we ask the main point of the question. So who will you, now remember that if we use who, we must add with. Okay, so who and with always go together. So who will you drink with on Saturday? Who will you meet? Or who will you go to church with on Saturday? If you say meet, you wouldn't say meet with, because meet implies the with. Where will you eat lunch today? Where will you eat dinner today? What color will you dye your hair if you're talking about dyeing the hair? So depending on your theme, you're going to work through the questions accordingly. Moving on to slide 39, looking at present continuous and present perfect open questions. So what we do here is we put the W and then we add the basic point of the question, but we add the ing after the verb. So this implies, for example, what are you doing? It means right now. So you're reading this right now, or maybe you're listening to this video right now. If we want to use the present perfect, then we get where have you been? It means lately, since the last time I saw you. So who have you been hanging out with? You can also ask. So it means since the last time I saw you, what friends have you met and who have you been talking with? Okay, we're moving on now to the interviews, but I want to talk about the three modal verbs of could, should, and would before we get into the interviews, because that's part of it. So for these interviews, these are important words because they give more information again. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to take words that have a lot of meaning in them and use those words to give more information. So many students are a little bit confused by how to use these words. So what I want to do is I want to show you with examples how they're used, and hopefully encourage you to use them yourself. So the first thing I want to do is I'd like to establish what each of these things mean. Now, usually students explain to me that they use these as past tense forms of the verb. So that is true, but traditionally these are used as modal verbs. So they actually have a separate meaning in their own right. So could tends to reflect the choices that are available. So for example, if I say, let me just think. I'll give you some examples in a second. So I'll say here, you can, I have my candles again. Choose a candle. You could choose the brown candle. That's one possible choice. You could choose the purple one. So these are the choices that are available. You could choose the purple or the brown candle. Should implies what you think is a good idea. What's the best idea? So I think you should choose the brown candle. Okay, so this just means that that is advice. That has the implication that there's something better about that brown one. Would is my choice. So I would choose the brown candle. So the idea for this is that we're using modal verbs to give more meaning. Another example that I can suggest is if you go to, let's see, okay, you're planning a trip, all right? So you could go to many different places in the world, okay? You could go to the USA, you could go to Jeonju, you could go to China. Should implies what's the good choice. So you should stay home, right? So this is the good idea. Would implies what your choice is. So traditionally you say you could do these things, you should do this thing, and I would means my choice. So I would stay home because staying home is safer. So we're going to try these step by step to see if we can find a simple example that might help you to understand and use these more clearly. So could. So here's my example. So you get a present of Omanon, 50,000 won. Maybe your mom gives it to you, or maybe for Chuseok someone gave you a gift of Omanon. What could you do with it? What choices are available? So see if you can think of 3 choices that you could do with Omanon. It doesn't mean you will, just possible choices. Okay, so I'm going to suggest that you could buy a t-shirt online. You could get something nice to eat at your local shop, and you could give it to your little brother as a present. So these are examples of things that you could do. These are possibilities. Should, so I'm on slide 43 now. Should examples, so you get the present of Omanon. What is it a good idea to do with that money? So what should you do with it? Maybe should is usually used for mums. Mothers really like should. You should brush your teeth. You should wash your face. You should go to bed early. You should study hard, right? Mums love should. So if you get a present of Omanon, what should you do with it? So maybe you should save it. Okay, it depends on your opinion. I'm not sure. What do you think you should do with the Omanon that you got? Hopefully you got an answer to that of what you should do. What is a good idea? Now, would means out of those choices, out of what you should do, actually, in reality, what would your choice be? Okay, so you have many choices. Could. You should do that. So you could buy a t-shirt online. You could buy something nice to eat. You could give it as a present to your little brother. You should really save it. But what would you do? Okay, so this could be one of these four choices, or it could be something totally different. So what would you do with Omanon if you got it? So if I got a present of Omanon of 50,000 won, I would save it, probably, if I got a gift of 50,000 won. So anyways, I'm hoping that this helps to clarify how to use these modal verbs. One of the points that I'm noticing that students are using when they're writing, and I assume when you're speaking as well, which you should not do, is using I could know or I could learn, which means it's possible to do that, but what you're actually wanting to say is I learn or I know. So you shouldn't be putting I could do that, because could implies that you're not. It's just a choice. So I could learn means I learn, or I could know, I know. So please be careful about how you use these. Moving on, so we're going to move on now to the assignment section of our week 9. What I'm looking for here is an interview again, but I'm giving you a set of questions of which you need to choose the ones that you think are interesting, that you like. And basically that our idea for this is that you can do anything. You can take any topic, any subject, and you can present it in English, or you can write about it in English in an effective, clear systematic pattern. So what we're doing is you're going to interview someone. Now, what I'd like you to do is to interview a classmate. So I'm going to suggest that if you, basically my point is I want you to use English in the interview as much as possible. That's one problem with us doing our classes this way, is that it's not as easy for me to get you speaking in English. So that's part of why we did writing, because you are using English all the time. But what I'd really like you to do is use English out loud in an interview with somebody. So ideally, you'll call up a classmate, and I'm going to see if your class captains will deal with that for you and just give you a class member to talk to. If, however, that's not comfortable, you're also welcome to talk to, if your mom or dad speak English, or your brother or sister speak English, to conduct the interview in English as much as possible. I understand, of course, that it's a little bit weird maybe, but you can try. So what I'd like you to do is you're going to choose 5 questions. You could choose more questions if you want to, that's no problem. What you're going to do is ask your partner those 5 questions, and after each question you ask a follow-up question or 2 follow-up questions, like what we practiced last week, so that you get more information from your partner. So what I've done is on slide 47, I've given you 10 questions to choose from. So you only need to choose 5. So what I'd like to do first is we're going to work through each of these questions, And then in the next slide, in slide 48, I've given you, maybe there's some vocabulary which I've bolded and underlined here that might be a little bit weird or new. So anyways, we're going to check through that. So first of all, choose 5 questions from number 1, who do you aspire to be like? So this means, who do you look up to? Who is the person that you think is a really good model? Someone that you want to model yourself after because perhaps they have good qualities or they have done a good job with their life. Number 2, what books do you like to read? So you can look at this in 2 different ways. Number 1, it could be, the size of the book. Do you like to read short books, or do you like to read, you can also choose genre. So you could say, oh, I like to read mystery novels, or I like romance novels, something like that. Number 3, what's the weirdest scar you have? So perhaps weirdest means strangest, oddest, the most unusual scar. And we'll talk about scar in a second. So this is something that you have on your body. Number 4, what's the best thing that you have seen on YouTube? So, YouTube has a variety of videos. Is there anything, out of all of the videos that you have seen in your life, what's the best? That's what we're looking for. So to explain why. Number 5, if you could trade lives with one person for one day, who would it be and why? Now, be careful with this question because actually it's a 2-part question because you need to explain who the person is and why you want to trade lives with them. Number 6, what would you prefer? So you have 3 choices: shark diving, bungee jumping, or skydiving. So shark diving is when you go to a tropical place and you put on a snorkel and a mask, usually scuba gear, but you could also just do it with snorkeling. You dive underneath the water and they bring some food and the sharks come together. That's shark diving. So you go swimming with sharks, basically. Or bungee jumping. So this is when you tie the cord to your ankle, usually your ankle, and you go climb up very, very high and you jump off of the high building, and like an elastic, you don't hit the ground. You're on the end of an elastic and then slowly they pull you up or they let you down again. Skydiving is when you go up in a plane, you have a parachute on your back, and you jump out of the plane, the parachute opens. Or sometimes you can do it in tandem, where the instructor basically straps you to them, so it's the 2 of you together, and the instructor has the parachute, and you jump out of the plane and the parachute opens. Number 7, which would be harder to give up? Coffee or alcohol? Now, if you don't drink coffee and you don't drink alcohol, please don't choose this question. The idea for this is you choose questions that are interesting for you and your partner. Number 8, do you have a sweet tooth or do you prefer savory food? So we're going to talk about that in a second as well. Number 9 is, do you believe in ghosts? Which we're going to talk about as well. Why or why not? So if you believe in ghosts, why do you believe in ghosts? Maybe you have a good story. Or if you don't believe in ghosts, why don't you believe in ghosts? Number 10, what was the best experience of your whole entire life? Okay. So these are your 10 questions to choose from. You only need to choose 5 questions. And remember, of course, that when we're doing this, what you're focusing on in the end is going to be 3 details. Because maybe 1 or 2 of the questions that you ask, maybe you won't get good information or it's boring. So we don't want that information. Anyways, moving on to our slide 48. We're going to talk about each of these terms. Now, what I've done is I have bolded and underlined these items on slide 47, and then on slide 48, I've put them in red. So it's just easier for you to find. So number 1 is aspire. So aspire means that you want to be like that. So aspire tends to mean that if you want to make yourself better, you want to be like someone who's really good. So who do you want to be like? A scar is the mark that's left after you've had a cut or you've had some surgery. So the scar is the white healed skin that you can see. So perhaps some of you have interesting marks from surgery, or from, like, this one is from my cat from when I was a kid. Number 5 is if you could trade lives with someone. That means that you have someone and you, and for one day you get to be that person and they are you. So who do you want to change lives with? Just for one day, And you need to explain why, of course, why you would want to do that. In number 6, remember that, we're talking about shark diving, bungee jumping, or skydiving. So remember that the or means just choose one. Okay, so you have one option to choose from. The 3 options to choose from, but you only get to choose one. Number 7, to give up something means to stop, to quit. So, for example, to give up smoking, or to give up coffee, or to give up alcohol. You can give up a variety of things. Junk food, lots of different things. So between the 2, though, coffee or alcohol, would, if you're not interested, don't choose that question. Which would be harder to give up. Number 8, a sweet tooth is a simple way to talk about when you like sugar. So people blame it on their teeth and they say, oh, my teeth want the sugar. So they say, I have a sweet tooth. I like sugary things. I like sweet things. So maybe if you like cakes or macarons or ice creams or, sweet, lovely sweet things, chocolate, then you have a sweet tooth. If, however, you like the opposite, you like chips, or you like salty foods we describe as savory. You can savor them, you taste them strongly. So do you have a sweet tooth, or do you prefer savory food? Interesting. Maybe not. That's what the picture is here. So you can see we have lots of sweet things and lots of savory things. Cheese and crackers and all sorts. Pretzels, they're all savory. Number 9 is the last one that I looked at. To believe something means you think it's true or false. But to believe in something, the 2 words together, means that you trust it is real. So you believe it is true. So do you believe in ghosts means that you think ghosts are real. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in aliens? Do you believe in UFOs? There are a number of things that people talk about, which some people think are not true at all. Do you believe in fortune tellers? Some people believe very strongly that if you go to a fortune teller, they'll be able to read your fortune and tell you what the future holds for you. Other people, nah, I don't believe in that. But you need believe in together. Remember, believe is just true or false. So, yay, we're at the end. You did a good job. Your week 9 assignment. So your week 9 assignment is basically after you've done your interview with someone in English. So please try your best to use English as much as possible. Use the interview to write a paragraph about your partner. Okay, not about you, not about what you did, about your partner, what you learned about your partner. So remember, we're looking for he and she, and we're looking for the different tense usage. So remember that you want to start with the brainstorm. Even if you just brainstorm in your head, I think you're better writing it down, but if you want to, you can just do it in your head as well. So what tense are you going to be using? What 3 details are you going to be choosing? So I suggest choose 3 questions, 3 answers that you thought were interesting, and then you can develop them. So remember, once again, your introduction should be 2 sentences which give the important information. Who did you interview? And what were you doing again? You were interviewing. Number 2 is your development. So even though you've asked a lot of questions, what are the 3 details that you found the most interesting, that you learned that were new to you perhaps, or that you think other people would think were interesting? And finally, of course, don't forget your conclusion. We need that conclusion to show that you are finished, that you know you're finished, and that you know how to finish clearly. So you're restating, once again, about your interview and who you interviewed. So don't forget as well, please, to use your transition words, but try to stay away from first, second, third. Use the more academic ones, I guess. Now, I'm moving on to the last slide. Yay! Slide 50. So slide 50, I just wanted to talk very briefly about the Spectrum Language Arts books, the scans, because there are parts. I'm giving you a little bit more to do now, because I think now you're starting to get comfortable with this style. So if for 1.5, this is our linking verbs. So this is just a simple way to describe for children how we use these verbs. So we've only got 7 answers here, and then on the following page, this is also using linking verbs, but what I want you to do is the complete it section, not the try it section. Okay, so don't do the try it section. Then also we've got our review, and capitalization. So moving on with the capitalization is that I wanted you to practice your capitalization again. So this is just to check and make sure everybody's clear about that. And then moving on, we have forming the future tense. So we're going to be looking here. So we have 7 here, and then rewrite it. We all have 6. So we're not going to do the try it one here at the bottom. So I'm hoping that this is clear and everything is good for you. Oh yeah, and sorry, for the 2.5 I forgot we are also doing the periods, because I really want you to learn about abbreviations like Mrs., MRS period. So we've got some abbreviations in here, and hopefully everything is clear. Remember that if you have any problems with anything, please do contact me. I'm hoping everything will be okay. I'll also warn you that YouTube, uploading these videos is taking a crazy amount of time now. Like the week 8 video, when I had to re-record and upload it, took me about 12 hours to upload one video. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that these videos will upload quickly and easily. So goodbye, have a lovely week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.